Hi, welcome back to EducateTube.com. My name is Sipsky, your host. Today I want to talk about my Sigma FP, the new firmware that I just updated 3.0. I'll tell you 3 things that I like about the firmware. Let's talk about it right now. Okay, as you can see, here's my Sigma FP, the way I set it up. There is the Ninja 2, so I can monitor myself if I want to do a vlogging. That's how I would set it up, so now I can see myself. Now, I updated the firmware 3.0. There are 3 things that I really like, and I'm going to tell you right now. Number one is that you can actually now change the color temperature. You can adjust it by going to the menu. Let me show you right now. And then you click on the AEL, and then you're able to move the color temperature with your wheels, which is cool. Now you can adjust the kind of color you want for your scene using the Kelvin temperature, which I think is amazing. Number 2, what I like about the Sigma FP, now you can do 24 frames per second, which is awesome. Not the 23.98 or 23.976, but exactly 24 frames per second. Now for 1080p, that's what I do anyway. That's amazing, okay? And number 3, the reason I like about the new firmware update is the fact that when you do the manual focus, this one is using the Nikon manual focus. So if I'm going to zoom in, this is what I do. So I click on it, and you can see the little window there. It open up 4 times, or I can swing to 8 times. Now previously I wasn't able to move around that focus point. However, with the cursor, the wheels, I can actually now figure out which one I want to focus in. There we go. So by moving the zoom, and I can move around the frame, I'm able to focus on the particular object that I want to be in focus. So those are 3 very important firmware updates for 3.0 I really like. Now there are others, like for example dual tone and all that. They're a bit gimmicky. I don't really use it, although it's nice to have it, and other things as well, which you can look it up on their website. For the firmware 3.0 is amazing. Now I also want to talk about why I bought the Sigma FP in the first place. The reason I have the Sigma FP is because of the low light. I love the fact that you can use the ISO all the way up to 51,200 and even expand to 100,000 plus. And I'm going to show you right now what it looks like. Let me switch it right now. Okay, as you can see now, I'm using my Sigma FP. So it's set at ISO 800 using a Nikon standard kit lens. It's a manual focus right now. I love the fact that you can actually see the highlights on the camera, so I know exactly if I'm in focus or not. Now, the Sigma advantage over my other Sony cameras, with exception to the Sony A7S series, this camera is at par with the Sony A7S II and close to A7S III in terms of low light capability. I'm going to show you right now how far I can extend the ISO. But before I do that, one of the reasons I got the Sigma, not just for the low light, but also the fact that you can do DNG RAW. And that's important to me because my Sony FS700R can do DNG with the Shogun Inferno. Combine these 2 together, this would be a killer for doing short films for small independent filmmaker like myself, or starting out anyway. So let me show you right now the ISO on this thing. So right now it's at 800. I'm going to increase it. Okay, so let's now move the ISO to, and see if I can do this. Okay, so this is 800, and now let's move it to 1600. Okay, there is 1600 right now. All right, so have a look at the 1600 ISO. I'm going to move it to this is 3200. Okay, so 3200 ISO. So it's getting pretty bright, right? And this is an evening time. The time here in Canada is 8:30 p.m. So the sunlight is coming down. We're getting sunset now. I have light in my gazebo, a little bit of that, so you can see casting the shadow on beneath here. But as you can see, it's at 3200 ISO. Let me increase that further. This is now 6400. It's so white, bright that my skin is now turning white. Idea for the Sigma FP, normally it's better to have it a little bit darker than you bring up the highlights in post, right? Sigma is not really good at capturing overexposed image. It's better to do underexposed and then bring it up, especially when you're filming in DNG RAW. Just keep that in mind. But for this test, I just want to show you how far I can go with my ISO. So it's now at 6400. Okay, let me change that to, there we go, 12,800. Oh man, I'm literally white now. It's extremely bright. Okay, so 12,800 ISO. So I wouldn't never, like, I mean, at night I might use this, but you know, with a bit of light from my gazebo, I don't think this is the ISO I would use. I probably use around 800 to 1600. This is 12,800 ISO, so extremely bright. Okay. By the way, it's filming at 24 frames per second, exactly 24 frames per second. Okay, so that's a new firmware 3.0. Let's move it further to 25,600 ISO. This is 25,600 ISO. So literally I'm just blot out. It's in white. Okay, so normally you would not use this, especially when you have light from the top, ambient light from everywhere. If it's like completely with a candle, yes, you might use this ISO 25,600, but this is just too much. Okay, I'm gonna go one more. Okay, this is 51,200 ISO. So definitely only use it for an emergency at night when there is maybe a match or a little bit of light, glow light, LED light, glow, just tiny amount of light, then you might want to use this. But definitely this is not to be used at all when you have a lot of light or even light in this room. This is just too much. I can even go further. You can go up to 100,000, but I wouldn't recommend 100,000 because there'll be a lot of grain noise. Now, the one thing about the grain noise coming from the Sigma FP, I really enjoy the grain noise type of background. It simulates the film look. Okay, even though it's noisy, it has that kind of film look to it. There we go. Better. That's 800. Now, hopefully, I'm going to bring up the color in post. Even though it's underexposed, it's good for this camera. Now I'm going to change in post, as you can see right now, and now it's pretty good, right? So 800 ISO. The reason I like the Sigma FP is it's the low light features and the ability to do DNG RAW. It matched with my Sony FS700R. I haven't had a chance to use it for photography. However, I was experimenting with it and I found out that even at a shutter speed of 1/40th and hold it steady, I was able to get a pretty sharp image. Okay, so this is pretty amazing. This camera, even though it doesn't have the internal stabilization, you can hold your camera with your hand without the gimbal. You can go as low as a shutter speed of 1/40th. So not bad at all. All right. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching EducateTube.com. See you next time, and don't forget to subscribe.